Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video we will discuss about the maybe best gut string on the market today for violinists and why I won't play it. First of all, thank you for tuning in. If you are new to the channel, consider subscribing to this channel. It helps me out a lot. And now let's get started with the video. The best gut string for violinists is always a relative term, but if we talk about a compromise between tuning stability and still a gut string, we have to talk about the Passione Solo strings. The Passione Solo strings were sent to me by the shop polychord.com, so if you want to check them out, please do it. Links in the description below. So let's start with the facts. The G and the D string are silver wound strings. The A string is the aluminium wound string. The E string is silvery steel. For the lowest strings, there are options to get the string with the ball end or also with the sling, which is typical for gut strings, that they come with a sling. For the E string, of course, there's the option to have a ball or a sling end as well. Why I am so excited about this review and these strings in particular is because practically all my time I spent at the university I played on gut strings, especially on Pirastro Eudoxa strings. Those were the first gut strings I played, and I was so drawn into that sound that I didn't play anything else until 5 years later when I finished my studies. Then I played the Olive stiff version, which is an awesome string. All strings by Pirastro, by the way. But the Olive stiff are very expensive, and I had the problem that somehow my sweat of the fingers damaged the string winding so that the string became rough like a guitar string and made sound when shifting. Those strings were not an option for me anymore, but sound-wise they were great. Then I played the regular Olive strings because they have a similar sound to the Olive stiff strings, but due to different materials, I didn't have the problem with my sweaty fingers damaging the string winding. So all of my study time, I enjoyed this sound very much. In that time, I did play in some ensembles, in some bands, in some orchestras, but I never had the need to be always on point. I always had the time to tune. The reason why I switched from gut strings to synthetic core strings is because I didn't want to tune anymore so much. With gut strings, when they get warm, they expand, so the pitch gets lower when you play on them initially. So I first started to take a synthetic A and just play with gut G and D, and then I later switched to whole sets of synthetic core strings because, to be honest, synthetic core strings are amazing today in terms of sound quality and timbre. So what has all this to do with the Passione Solo strings, you might ask? The point is that I heard about the Passione Solo strings very much. And the thing which caught my ear was that they have a good tuning stability, so that you don't have to retune them as much as you might have to retune an Olive string or an Eudoxa string. Finally, I tested them. And let's see what happens. When I initially put the strings on, I didn't record the changing of the strings because I think this is not important, and also the first 2 or 3 days are not so important. But I had to play a concert in a quite nice room, and after a rehearsal I had the time to play some solo Bach, and I uploaded this clip also, I think, to IGTV, Instagram TV, for those of you who don't know what that is. And I will post a small clip of that recording right here, so you can listen. Of course, it's a recording made with my mobile phone. And also I had an Pirastro gold E string on at that point. because I love the Pirastro Gold E string and I always try it with new string sets. So as you can hear, the fresh sound of the strings has a lot of high frequencies, which you would expect also from a gut string, without sounding especially nasal. And there's a certain give in from the string which makes it a pleasure to play solo Bach, especially polyphonic music for solo violin. I played those strings now for like 4 months, and I have to say those high frequencies stay in a way. Also, while having a give in sound-wise, so that you can really dig into the sound, they still have a good resistance to the bow. And only the A string was a little bit prone to break under my bow pressure. So I had to adjust a little bit coming from the Pirastro perpetual strings, which are a quite strong synthetic core string, which practically never breaks under your bow pressure. I had to adjust my contact point from the bow a little bit nearer to the bridge with the Passione Solo strings. So the strings still feel like a little bit gutsy, quite soft under the left hand as well, and a little bit soft under the bow. Tension-wise, the string is in the midfield. And when I'm talking about the midfield, it's about the midfield of all strings, including synthetic core strings. I think we can say the string is quite high tension. But the material, of course, is a little bit softer than most of the synthetic core strings. Only the D string has a lower tension, but overall the tension of the set is pretty standard. So that's also why you don't have to adapt that much to those strings. For the left hand, the strings feel a little bit like a soft synthetic core string, like for example the Larsen Virtuoso or Larsen strings in general, maybe excluding the Canone strings, or also due to the soft material, the Peter Infeld strings. So the left hand has a quite easy time on the fingerboard. Talking about the specific strings, the G string has a very warm sound. You can modulate the sound as you want. You can make a very nasal sound, or you can make a very round sound or a very powerful sound as well. So the G string is very flexible in terms of usage. The only thing which for me it lacks a little bit is a punch in the upper registers. The D string is similar like the G string, but in my opinion it is the best string out of this set. The D string has all of this volume and color and also edge to the sound, but still plays phenomenal in the higher positions. Regardless of its low tension, we have big volume of sound without much sharpness. The A string on my violin was a little bit problematic. I think it is the most gutsy sounding string because it has a lot of high frequencies and it's the most difficult to handle for the bow, which is also sometimes typical for gut strings. But if you handle them well, they give you the most beautiful sound. But if you make some small mistakes with the bow, you are basically screwed. So the A string was a little bit difficult to play for me. I had to adapt more than the other strings on the A string, and the higher positions had a tendency to sound a little bit thin. The E string of the set is very solid, although I think you are better off with a more powerful E string, for example like the Pirastro Gold E string, which is my favorite E string overall with all sets I played so far on my violin. I think the Passione Solo E string lacks a little bit of punch if you need it. It is powerful and it has a lot of volume, but there's a certain level you can't go above with this string. So we don't just want to talk. I want to give you some easy sound examples. I usually play in a G major scale in the first position, just that you have a comparison to my other string testing videos. So I will tune this instrument now, and I will at this point also demonstrate to you the not existing tuning stability. I will now play you a G major scale. So let's check the tuning. So as you can hear, maybe the A already, and I really didn't play much, dropped a little bit in its pitch. So let's go in depth about the tuning stability and how to get along with it. So the fact is that the Passione Solo strings from Pirastro are not stable in tuning. I can read you what Pirastro says about their strings regarding tuning stability. They say, quote, significantly increased tuning stability versus traditional gut core strings. When I first heard about the Pirastro Passione Solo string, I heard people say they are perfectly stable strings, just like a synthetic core and so on. When I now read what Pirastro themselves say, they already say these strings are increased in tuning stability versus traditional gut core strings. Yes, I can agree with that, but compared to synthetic core strings, which can hold their pitch over weeks if you place the instrument in the case, or can hold the tuning stability in different climates, different temperatures, it's another world entirely. So the truth is, when you tune your instrument, you have to retune multiple times for the first 30 minutes or so. After that, the strings, when they really are warm, they achieve some kind of a tuning stability. But if you then have to open the windows to let some fresh air inside and it's a cold or medium climate, you will have to tune again because the strings get cold and then get higher in pitch again. And then after you play for 5 minutes, you have to tune again because the strings get warm again and expand again. The tuning is really dependent on temperature. They don't react much. The pitch change is not much, but if you are a professional, you can't play with open strings which are slightly out of tune, even if it's 5 cents or maybe also 2 cents. You want your open strings to be a reliable source, of course. So if you want to play the Passione Solo strings, you have to always play them in before you go to a rehearsal, if you don't want to be the person who always has to retune their instrument. And also you have to be very aware of temperature changes so that the strings don't drop or get higher suddenly. There's a compromise you can go with, which I did for some years. You can go with a synthetic core A string, so you have a reliable A string from where you can tune your other strings. If you want to record Bach solo works in a church for yourself, maybe, those strings could be an option. If you have the time to play them in and if you have the time to retune between the recording breaks, you can use the Passione Solo strings for that, if you like that gut sound so much. But I have to say that the gutsiness of the sound is under the level of maybe the Olive strings or the Eudoxa strings. And I think I would prefer the Olive strings because they are such real gut strings and they are not the compromise between tuning stability and gutsiness. They are terrible to tune, of course, the Pirastro Olive strings, but they have the most beautiful gutsy sound. So for me, the Pirastro Passione Solo set was kind of too much of a compromise, with the downsides being a little bit tamed, the tuning stability, without solving the problem. Because a little bit out of tune for me is also out of tune. So for me, in an ensemble, or if you are an orchestra player, those strings are in our times difficult to handle. Sound-wise, for a gut string, the projection and the sound is very modern and very, very good. But the gutsiness, as I said before, is also quite minor. Also, the gutsiness and the material chosen for those strings, which is gut, of course, leaves me, and in my experience with those strings, with a certain level of projection which I can reach and can't go beyond that. It happened several times in the last months that I had reached that limit of sheer loudness and projection and could not get enough out of my instrument anymore, which I could before with synthetic core strings without a problem. especially in larger rooms and when playing with other instruments who play synthetic core strings, you could struggle with those strings. Thank you very much, polychord.com, the shop of my choice. They support me since day one on this channel. If you want to order strings in Europe especially, go there and say hello from me. I thank you very much to be subscribed to my channel. Consider subscribing. If you like this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. Write in the comment what you think about the Passione Solo strings. Maybe you have a different opinion than me, that's totally fine. Thank you guys for watching. Stay well, stay healthy, and enjoy practicing. Bye bye.